Indiana basketball schedules another visit in the transfer portal, and this time it's Alex Hemenway from Clemson.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. Appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Game off. We got to talk more about Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Well, thank you so much for making this your first listen each and every day. Apologies for all of my everydayers for no episode yesterday. If you're watching on the video, you can kind of see what's going on here. I was, for my full-time radio job, we had some playoff baseball that I had to go and attend to for play-by-play, calling that on the radio, and I was outside pretty much all day yesterday. And so you can see what happened there. If you're on the audio and you want a good laugh, go look it up on YouTube. My face is pretty much fried. So had to attend to that early yesterday morning. I was gone all day. Didn't get back till late last night. So I do apologize for no episode yesterday. That is not something we will make a habit of here on Locked On Hoosiers. But appreciate you being here, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. Well, the Hoosiers continue to look in the transfer portal and really try to find that last couple of pieces, and this one is in the three-point shooting category. Alex Hemenway, a guy that we have mentioned a couple of times. We've talked about him and his stats, but he is planning to get that visit set, and the day we're looking at is May 14th. So coming up, still a little bit to go, right? About 10, 11 days, depending on when you're watching this. And so Indiana's not the only ones interested in the sharpshooter from Clemson. He is also visiting Vanderbilt this weekend and will then visit Maryland next weekend. And the last time we had a conversation about Alex Hemenway, we mentioned Maryland and Vanderbilt. And those two places scare me for this reason. Not because they're better than us, not because they're a better location or a better program than Indiana basketball, but given what their rosters look like compared to ours, they may have more to offer him than we do. And I think they may have more to offer him playing time and possibly NIL. I'm going to be honest. I don't know what Vanderbilt's NIL money looks like when it comes to basketball. I don't have that knowledge, folks. Maryland, on the other hand, I mean, it's decent. It's still not good compared to ours, right? But we may not be willing to pay him what he wants. And we may not be able to give him the playing time that he wants either. I look at it this way. I look at it as a guy that came off the bench most of the time during his days at Clemson. His 5 years there, he used a COVID year. He's battled injuries a lot. We'll get to that in a second. But for a guy that has been basically a bench player his entire career in college at a Power 5, Power 6 level, is he really looking to transfer to another Power 6 school to be a bench player? I don't know. I think that's something we have to find out. And I think that's something that Indiana and Hemenway are going to discuss when he steps foot on campus in Bloomington on May 14th. Here's the good news. He's an Indiana native. He graduated high school in the state of Indiana. So if there is any place he would want to go, you would think that he would want to come back home to Indiana and play in Bloomington. Over his career, the 6'4", 192-pound guard, good size, right? He shot 43% from three. And this is not, he only made one per game, but he shot it well when he did only shoot twice per game, right? No, this guy shot a pretty good amount of them and made them at a 43% rate over a 5-year span. Now, there is a little asterisk there, because I mentioned he's had some injuries. A couple of seasons, he only played a few games. Some seasons he didn't play at all. This 22-23 season, he was dealing with some, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, a foot injury is what it says. And he had some knee problems. He's had some leg problems. So he's just had an up and down career. And he mentioned that in his post leaving Clemson, that it's just been a lot of stress. It's been tough to deal with physically, mentally. And so he's looking for a restart. And so if he can stay healthy, he's going to be a great addition to, or he would be a great addition to Indiana. Because what do we still need? We still need 3-point shooters. You can never have enough, ever. And if you can bring that off the bench, if you can bring 6'4" and a 43% shooter off the bench in Big Ten play, come on. That's awesome. That is exactly what we need to limit the drop off from starters to bench. We've talked about that before on this show as well. What does concern me, though, is the injuries, because if you go out and get this guy and you bring him in and he continues to have these lingering injuries and he doesn't really play, well, sitting on the bench in sweats doesn't really help you a whole lot from the three-point line now, does it? So I know you can't, I guess you don't want to hold that against him, but I think it's something, if you're Indiana, you have to take that into consideration, which is really tough. And that's the nasty side of it. That's the non-pretty side of it, is Indiana has to decide if they want this guy too. This is not just a visit for Hemenway to decide if he wants to come here. This is also for the Hoosiers to interview and see if they want him. It's like a job interview, right? They always tell you when you're interviewing for a job, you're not only being interviewed by them, you need to interview the employer and ask some questions too. That's exactly what's happening here. And so we'll see if the Hoosiers want him. I'm cool with it. Bring him in. He's got size. He's got a real quick, high release, and I think he can shoot over defenders, taller defenders, especially here in the Big Ten. I don't think he's going to come in and be a starter by any means, but he's basically averaged 6, 7, 8 points his entire career, 15, 22 minutes, give or take in there. So that's what he's done his entire time. And if he's okay with that, he can have that here in Bloomington, because we need that on the bench. Brings you size, brings you shooting, could bring a spark, could get you back in a game if you had to do it. And yeah, he doesn't have to be the 7th or 8th man every single time, man. You could bring him in immediately off the bench if you just need some points, or you're down early, or nobody's making threes. Whatever the case may be, the Hoosiers are going after 3-point shooters, and Alex Hemenway looking to come to Bloomington on May 14th. He'll visit Vanderbilt first, then Maryland, and then Indiana. You can take that for what you will, if you like the first visit or the last visit, or maybe you're a fan of the recruit being right there in the middle at your school. But I either say you want the first or you want the last, whether that's high school recruits or whether it's in the transfer portal. You want the first one to make that first impression, or you want the last one to have that lasting thought in their head. That's the last thing they'll remember before they make their decision. That's where Indiana will be. And this is getting finalized. Let me say that too. This is getting finalized for May 14th for Alex Hemenway, the Clemson 49% three-point shooter, setting a visit to Indiana. Well, coming up on Locked On Hoosiers, interesting conversation I want to have with you, because the Indiana athletic director has come out and started talking about retaining Mike Woodson. He talked about it on a podcast. There's some interesting quotes that I want to talk to you about retaining Mike Woodson and why he was not fired after the offseason. We'll talk about that coming up on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day, adding it to your rotation of things you watch, things you listen to. I tell you all the time, I don't care where you listen to it. I don't care where you watch it. You can do it however you want to. As long as you're here every day, that's what matters. And thank you so much for doing that. If you're on YouTube, go ahead, like the video. It spreads it out. It shares it with the world so we continue to grow over here. Also, subscribe to the channel. Helps you be in the loop, stay notified every single new episode that we post. Also, for all of my audio listeners as well, thank you so much for listening there. You can follow on any of your audio platforms and also turn on notifications there so you never miss a new audio version of Locked On Hoosiers. Well, a couple of months ago after the season was over, and it's crazy that we're into May now, and the season was, you're looking at going on 2 months now that the season ended for Indiana basketball. The conversation became, and really it was happening before the season ended, right? You're thinking, is Mike Woodson going to be fired? Is Mike Woodson being let go? Will he be the head coach next season at Indiana basketball? And after all the drama, after all the rumors, after all the things that happened, all the people involved, Indiana decided to retain Mike Woodson. But there was never an announcement about it. The university, the athletic department, nobody ever came out and said, hey, here's his graphic. He's staying. He's our coach. He's our guy. Hooray, hurrah, right? That never happened. They just kind of said, yeah, he's coming back. Like, this is happening. He's not going anywhere. Let's move on. And it was kind of weird. It was kind of awkward, right? But then it's been a couple of months, but the AD has now come out and he started talking about it a little bit, has Scott Dolson. And he talked about it on a podcast through 247. And he had some interesting comments about this, and interesting quotes about why they retained him, why they didn't say anything, and what they expect moving forward. Some of the things that he talked about was, and here's a quote, talking about why they didn't release a huge statement, make a big deal about it, right? He says, quote, I don't think it helps every time things get a little challenging that I come out with some type of statement. He goes on to say, and at the end of the year last year, there was never a statement that was put out. Woody was never not coming back. I don't fully believe that. I think there was some movement there, and I think there was a lot of pressure on the backside from some big name people, some big pocket people, if you know what I'm saying. I think there were some things going on, and while a lot of people wanted him gone, I think a lot of people wanted him to stay as well because of the money you were going to have to pay Mike Woodson if you let him go. And was it the right thing to do just after year 3? Was it the right thing to do to get rid of him? I don't know. That's up for you to decide, I guess. But that's an interesting comment saying it doesn't help every time times get tough and every time something gets stirred up for us to come out and make a statement about it, because you're almost feeding into it a little bit. And I get that. That's fine. But this is a big deal. This isn't something small. This isn't something that the fans just made up or the media made up. Like, this was a real deal. Like, Indiana was considering getting rid of Mike Woodson, and they decided not to do it. They just didn't want to come out and make a huge deal about it, which at the end of the day, it is what it is. Some other things that he said that I really thought were interesting. He goes on in this podcast to talk about, and here, I'm going to plug it too. You can go and find it at the Hoosier Hysteric. You can listen and kind of see what he was talking about with the reasons they kept Mike Woodson. And he talks about how he goes, Scott Dolson, the AD, goes into the locker room of sporting events after games, and he sees the vibe of the players after wins, after losses, after the season's over, and he kind of gets a vibe and talks about what's happening. He talked about that, about how that's what was his ultimate decision to fire Tom Allen from Indiana football. He said, yeah, this is not going well. This is going in the wrong direction. And that's how that went down. He went in the locker room after Indiana lost in the Big Ten tournament and the season was over for basketball. And he said, guys were upset. Guys were, they're visibly upset, very bought in, and they were hurt after the season. And that's what ultimately led him to decide to keep Mike Woodson, because they were still bought in. They still cared. And they knew, or I guess he knew, that this thing was still going in the right direction under head coach Mike Woodson. So that's sort of his reasoning behind that. And so I leave this up to you. I leave this up to you, the fan. Was it the right move to keep Mike Woodson? I don't know. I don't know. We're going to have to find out. I mean, hindsight's going to be 2020 eventually, right? Whether it be this year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, who knows, right? That's going to be something we decide down the road. I've given you my thoughts on this, but I'll say it again. Do I think it was time to fire Mike Woodson right now? I guess not. I didn't want to pay him, right? You don't want to pay all that money to fire somebody. I can't stand this practice we've gotten into in college sports where we say, you know what? Nah, we don't want you to work for us anymore. Here's $20 million to not work here anymore. I hate that. I can't stand it that athletic departments have gotten into this routine almost is what it is to just pay people to go away. It's ridiculous. And so I did not want that to happen. But there's no denying. I don't care if it's the AD. I don't care if it's the athletic department. I don't care if it's the coaches and the players in the locker room or for you, the fan base. There is no denying that there was a very loud crowd that wanted Mike Woodson gone. They did. They wanted Woody to be out of here. But he's not. He is the head coach. He is going to be here for this next season. Here's the good news. He's gone into the portal and done a fantastic job. He went and got Bryson Tucker after all the craziness in high school recruiting. And all the questions still remain. And you know what they are at this point. Can he coach? Can he change his system? Can he develop? Can he win games offensively? Those are all things that we still have to find out about head coach Mike Woodson. And he gets another season to prove it. But you can't tell me if you're the AD, Scott Dolson, that he was never not going anywhere. Because I don't believe it. I really don't. I do not believe that. I think they considered it. I really do. And at the end of the day, what did it come down to? Ultimately, I don't know. I'm not in those meetings. But I think they didn't want to pay him. And I think they wanted to give the guy another shot, give an Indiana guy one more shot to make it happen. And so far, in the offseason anyway, it seems like Mike Woodson is trying to do that. Well, coming up on Locked On Hoosiers, kind of relating to this upcoming season and what Mike Woodson can do, we now know the Big Ten opponents for Indiana basketball, not the schedule. We don't know when, but we do know who, and we do know where. We'll talk about that in our final segment coming up on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there's just so much more that we got to discuss in this wonderful game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces for travel to travel the boards with. You can get emojis to make fun of your friends when you take all their stuff, right? Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every single day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pen Chico machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. Shout out to my everydayers. You are the reason that we do this each and every day, and you're the reason Locked On is so successful. And also have a fun announcement we're going to give you on Monday, and it has everything to relate to you, the listeners and the watchers. So thank you for that. Oh, apologies. And so that'll be on Monday, but want to talk something that came out earlier this week, and we now know Indiana basketball, that is. We now know their Big Ten home and away opponents for 2024 and 2025. As I said, we don't know the schedule. We don't know when exactly all these games are going to be, right? What dates that they will be, but we know who and we know where. And this is really exciting because if you don't remember, we have new teams in the Big Ten. So here's what we're looking at for 2024 and 2025, okay? Here are your home-only games, then I'll give you the away-only games, and then I'll give you the home and homes that you'll have one at home and one on the road. All right, the home-only games for Indiana basketball in 2024 and 2025. You'll have Illinois at home, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, Rutgers. All right. Nothing crazy there. UCLA and USC. Yes, two of the new additions to the Big Ten. Those two will be coming to Bloomington. So you don't have to go to California this year. That's pretty awesome, right? You get to have two big-time programs, two big names. UCLA and USC will make the trip out to Bloomington and get to play in Assembly Hall. So I think that's really exciting. We'll get to see those in person. I'm a big fan of seeing new schools in person, whether it be football, basketball, whatever. I'm a nerd when it comes to seeing a new team roll into your stadium or to your arena. So that's going to be cool to see UCLA and USC. Here's the away games, okay? And also on those home games, let me say this. Outside of those, oh my goodness, excuse me. On those home games, Maryland, easy, should be. Michigan, doable. Minnesota, doable. Rutgers, doable. Who is going to be much better this year? But overall, those are great home games in terms of winning. Maryland doesn't get me excited. Michigan, going to be a good team. They're going to be much improved this year, so I am excited about that. Minnesota, Rutgers, who knows? Illinois, that'll be fun. UCLA, USC, absolutely. So all in all, I'm in love with the home games. I think the home games for Indiana basketball in the Big Ten are going to be a lot of fun. Here are the away games where you do not play them at all except on the road in the Big Ten. You go to Iowa, got to go to Michigan State, Nebraska, Northwestern, Wisconsin, and then here you go. Oregon and Washington. Yes, you will be playing in Oregon, in Eugene, and you'll be playing in Seattle, in Washington. So you don't have to go to California, but you do still have to go on the West Coast. And you're going to travel to Eugene and Seattle. But you know what? I'm cool with, man. I think that's awesome. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And so we can assume safely that next year for 25-26, that we will be traveling to UCLA and USC. But how fun is that going to be? You get to go to Oregon and Washington, get to play at Wisconsin. That's a tough place to play. But Northwestern, typically not a tough place. Nebraska, it can be. We saw that last year. Michigan State, always tough to play. And Iowa, it's hit or miss. Tough road games for Indiana basketball this season. There's no doubt in my mind. Those are tough road games. And those are the ones you're only playing on the road. You will not see them here in Bloomington. Then you've got your three opponents that you're going to play in Bloomington, and you're going to play at their place as well. Ohio State and Columbus, Penn State, and Purdue. Yep, you're going to play Ohio State, Penn State, and Purdue. All three of those you'll have here and there. And all things considered, okay, the Big Ten is going to be much improved this year. Can we all agree on that? Can we all agree that the Big Ten, we better hope it's going to be better this year, but I really do think it will be. You look at your home games. I talked about those for a second. Illinois and Michigan and Rutgers and UCLA, USC. Those are big games, man. Those are going to be tournament winning games or tournament building, resume building. Wow, I haven't said that term in a while. Tournament resume building wins if you can get those inside your home gym. But just starting to look at the away games, and obviously the season is long time away from starting, but just trying to think of those net ranking games, right? Your quad games, your quad 1, quad 2s. I mean, you start talking about road games at Michigan State and Oregon and Wisconsin. I mean, you're talking about games that could really jump up in your net rankings, your KenPom, everything, and really boost that resume come March if you could start winning some of those games on the road. And then it's always fun playing Ohio State, Penn State, which if you're taking two teams to have home and homes, I think you're good with those two because you're supposed to be better than them more times than not. Ohio State, Penn State. Look, I know Penn State got us last year in embarrassing fashion both times, but you have a good chance to go on the road and get 2 road wins in Columbus and State College. Then you get Purdue, of course. That's obvious. Time to get back into that series too. Can we agree on that as well? It's time to get back into that rivalry and really remind them what the state of Indiana is all about. It's about us. It ain't about them. I don't care that they went to the Final Four. I don't care that they almost won a national title. Doesn't matter. It's time for Indiana to get back into that series, get back into the rivalry, and remind Purdue that the state runs through Bloomington. So overall, I'm excited about the new teams, Oregon, Washington on the road, UCLA, USC at home. Excited to see, who knows what other teams are going to be added by next season to the Big Ten, the ever-growing Big Ten in college athletics. Some are a fan of it, some aren't. I'm not necessarily a fan, but in terms of playing these teams, I find it exciting. And so we'll see how that goes. Excited for the 2024-2025 Indiana Big Ten basketball season. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here again. Be sure you like the video, subscribe to our channel if you're on YouTube. All of our audio listeners, follow us on there, turn on notifications. That way you never miss a new episode of Locked On Hoosiers. We will be back on Monday. That is a guarantee. We will be back on Monday. Have a great weekend. Until next time, Hoosier fans, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.